Peace. My name is Azzariah Ibn Bey, and this is a series of videotapes dealing with the occult sciences, the actual sciences that the Moors have practiced throughout history, giving you a historical perspective, also dealing with the Moorish science. The Moorish science and history is very beautiful and also very enlightening once you begin to educate yourself on our ancient occult sciences or our ancient culture, which is probably no actual beginning to this. But we can go back and try to pick a point in time wherein we came into the physical, and history beginning on the physical level, we can begin to try to track this, dealing with certain sciences in the attempt to escape back into which we originally come from. I got a lot of questions on the, by the way, this is the second part of tape 2. And I got a lot of questions concerning a few things on the menstrual blood and the elixir of life, and I'm going to answer a couple of those questions for those who are seeking that type of information. But here's a very interesting magazine. It's called the Sage Woman. This particular magazine is dealing with various ways to use the menstrual blood. This is a woman's magazine, or a womanist magazine, and it's actually dealing with how to use the menstrual blood in certain foods that our wives or our mates may give us unknowingly. Because you got to understand something. Whether you want to believe this or not, most of us, most men, have either eaten or drank the menstrual blood of our wives or mates. You see, if you have a wife who, or a girlfriend who you met and she couldn't cook when you met her, but now later on, or after a while, her food begins to taste good, you got to understand why. You see, of course, practicing to cook also plays a big role in that. But you got to understand that even the church women, you see, even church folk are dealing with this particular science. And I'm talking not from something I read, but firsthand experience. And many of you know this. So yes, it may seem very negative and based on our thinking, and in certain instances it probably is, mainly because of the cleanliness of our women today, walking around with weaves in their head and don't know how to take care of their body, not eating the right foods. Of course, the menstrual blood carries a lot of iron. For the unhealthy woman, I wouldn't advise even dealing with that, you see, unless you're a person with patience and willing to nurse a woman to a certain type of health for the benefit of both of you. And not only that, but then you have to find an open-minded person in that instance also. But Sage Woman is a very interesting magazine. It's a womanist magazine. This particular issue is the summer 2000, and it's called on the bottom here it says Our Wise Blood, and it's dealing with various recipes that women use with their menstrual blood, you see, and quite a few other things. So I want to answer a couple of questions that we discussed on the last tape, which was dealing with the elixir of life. If you want to know more about at the end of the first tape, I talked about the Holy Grail, talked about mermaids, talked about a few things to give you a general overview of that second tape. This particular tape I'm going to go into some other things that's going to help you understand the next tape, but also, like I said, want to deal a little bit more with the questions I had got. One of the questions was, why did I use so many white images in my last videotape? Well, I explained in the first videotape, and if you see the first videotape, it's full of black images. But most of the occult scientists were learned from the Moors. And when they begin to learn from the Moors, they begin to recopy and add their own interpretation of things. And they drew the images that they felt that pertain to them, you see, although it's your science. So you have to, although images present visual teaching, for instance, the white Jesus in the church, children learn more from what they see of that image than what you could tell them, you see. So it can be a type of mind control if you don't know the science that's going on dealing with that. So yes, images are visual preaching, but for the occultists, or for the purpose given in these particular tapes, is to give you the eye to see beyond the color scheme, to reach inside those particular images and draw out that which is yours. Because in most of the books, comic books, occult books, these are our ancient knowledge rewritten, recopied by European. And so they put their images in there. You see, some do it for race reasons, but others do it because they're not thinking on racial terms. They're thinking on, this is their knowledge, this is something they learn, and they want to write it down, you see, you know, for their people. It comes from him as he sucks it in from Africa or from whatever part of our culture he gets it from, reevaluates it to his particular swing, you see, and draw whatever. Most of them are artists also. Most great thinkers are artists, you see, writers, you see. So when you see these particular images in these books and magazines, and that's what mostly what our children read, is a lot of these comic books, they see these television shows, they see white images. So these particular tapes, or that last tape, was to let you see what goes on as far as our culture is concerned in these white images, and now you, as a teacher of your own children, can reinterpret these things for them, you see. Because most of the images you see, written by these people, once again, are white images. And so now you have to look at them when your child reads a comic book, heavy metal magazine, or whatever. You got to realize that although it looks white for face value, it's very black. Very black. And I talk about that on the first tape. So another question I had received for someone was that, why did the witch in The Wizard of Oz want the ruby slippers from Dorothy? Now, that's a very interesting question, because I didn't get into all the sciences of these particular fairy tales, elemental stories, but there's a lot of information that teach these particular moralistic stories. One, first of all, most of all the fairy tales come from the Moors, you see, reinterpreted by the European, or by the white man, or the Caucasian, or whatever name you want to give it. By the way, we're going to deal with that, because on the last tape, I made a statement at the end of the tape that the white man came first. Of course, I'm not talking about the white man you see. I'm talking about something on the occult level, and we're going to deal with that. We're not talking about the white man you see walking around here. Of course, he wasn't first. We are much earlier than him, but we're going to get into that. But you got to understand something. There were 3 women in The Wizard of Oz. You had Glinda the Good Witch, you had Dorothy, and you had the Wicked Witch of the West. That right there is the triple goddess. The Glinda the Good Witch took the menstrual blood, or the red shoes off of the dead witch and put it on Dorothy's feet. Remember, the lowest part of the body is dealing with the root chakra, which is also the area from which a woman menstruates, down on her feet, from the lowest chakra, and that's why the ruby slippers are on her feet, the lowest part of the body, because in mythology, so-called mythology, which is really a remnant or a moralistic principle dealing with truth, you see, in the center of all lies lies the truth. So on her feet were the ruby slippers, and they were on Mother Earth, you see. In mythology, the creator of the physical, of the earth and all the planets was the menstrual blood. And we're going to talk about that when we get to the Nag Hammadi library. So you had the triple goddess, the three women, the three main characters, the Glinda the Good Witch, Dorothy, and, of course, the Wicked Witch, wherein Dorothy starts off at the beginning and leads a trail to Emerald City, you see. But the reason why the Wicked Witch of the West wanted the slippers was that she represents the wise one, which was the witch, which was the latter aspect of the triple goddess, which was the non-menstruating woman who kept the menstrual blood within, because the menstrual blood embodied all wisdom, which was the creation of all things. And so you had the triple goddess, the three aspects of mainly the black woman, you see, mainly the black woman. Again, you have to look past, the person who wrote this was Frank Brahm. He's a white man. Of course, he's going to use his own people. For us, we have to reinterpret these things because these are elemental stories that the Moors, earlier than the Moors recultivated it. But these are ancient stories, you see. These are ancient stories. And so that's why you had Dorothy clicking her red heels together 3 times, you see. There's no place like home, which is, of course, the triple goddess, the 3 aspects of the black woman, which is, of course, why she clicked her heels together 3 times, you see, 3 times. So another similar typology or similar story to that is the moralistic story of Little Red Riding Hood. And I think we talked a little bit about that, but you have to understand that Little Red Riding Hood represents the menstrual blood. She goes through the pubic hair, which is the woods. And her mother, same thing with the Glinda the Good Witch, her mother sends Red Riding Hood through the woods with a basket of goodies to Grandma's house. Grandma represents the stream of blood, or the person who takes the stream of blood in. That's why the Red Riding Hood was going to Grandma's house. The wise one, Lilith. Of course, this is much earlier. Lilith is just a point that I'm picking to describe this science to you. Of course, it's much earlier than Lilith. Much earlier. The white boy wants to give you this history of some Jewish man who kills and drinks blood and all this kind of stuff. Bram Stoker and all these kind of things. These things is his version of a person who was just a murderer like all the rest of them, you see. That's not dealing with science at all. What I'm giving you is dealing with the actual true science, dealing with the principles surrounding this, you see. Although, as I said before, these in Europe, they actually believed that they would kill and eat the flesh and drink the blood of people. You see, they did these things and still do it today. You see, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about Moorish science. You see. So, Little Red Riding Hood actually she represents the menstrual blood, and she, talking about werewolves again, which was the anima within man. Anima representing a female aspect, who men have a menstrual cycle also. You see? And that's why the wolf ate grandma and waited for the menstrual blood to come with a basket of goodies. The basket of goodies represents all the melanin, the iron, and all the things that are within this particular elixir of life, which was what the werewolf was waiting for, you see. And that's why when you look at werewolves, werewolves change under the silver moon, which was dealing with Quicksilver, which was dealing with Hermes, you see, which was dealing with Hermes. And we explained a lot of that on the first tape. So you got to understand that's dealing with the whole Little Red Riding Hood, Wizard of Oz, all these particular fairy tales. As a matter of fact, there was a fairy tale called The Girl Who Lived with the Gazelles, and there was a Moorish tale. From this particular Moorish tale, you get Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, The Little Mermaid, Princess and the Pea, Rumpelstiltskin, and Rapunzel. All of those plays, or all of those moralistic principles or stories, fairy tales, come from this one fairy tale called The Girl Who Lived with Gazelles. You see, you got to understand that. Now, something very interesting about werewolves that I didn't talk about before, and that is that the word werewolf, though, actually comes out of England. And in England, what happened is when the Moors began to first train these people, they misinterpreted a lot of things, had to be retaught, and colleges had to be set up, schools had to be set up so they can continue to teach these people. But they went out and they actually killed wolves and put these particular wolf skins on them. And this later became a type of ceremony, wedding ceremony, hunting ceremonies. But when they put when they killed this wolf and put the wolf skin on them and wore it in these particular rituals and ceremonies, this is where you get the term werewolf from, was to wear the wolf, you see. Put the actual skin of the wolf on your back. Wear the wolf, you see. Wear the wolf. So, also, when you hear when you see a owl, we talked about the owl dealing with Lilith, meaning the wise one. Put an H on the owl, you get the howl, which is when the wolf sees the full moon, he howls, you see. Owl, howl. You got to understand, this all ties in. And so, in Egypt, you had Anubis. Anubis was actually the god of the underworld, who is the underworld being what? The menstrual or the vagina. The world that's the lowest part of the body before the legs start. That's the underworld. The pussy, the actual pussy, you see. Anubis. You got to understand this stuff. And that's where you get, in phrases that we use today, what's up, dog? Our youth, and even ourselves, we talk about what's up, dog, or where my dog's at. And as a matter of fact, when you watch some of these cartoons and a pretty woman walks by, the guy looks at the woman and he starts whistling, and his head actually turns into a wolf, you see. They call this wolves. When you're after a pretty woman, you're called a wolf, see. You got to understand that. So that's dealing with the anima or the animal nature of sexuality, you see. Now, something else I want to get into, and it's going to tie into the next tape that we're going to deal with, and first of all, you have to understand something, that we exist as something more than just the physical body. The physical body, you have different, at least 7, there's probably hundreds, but at least 7 known bodies that exist within you. You have an astral body or etheric body. You have a physical body, a spirit body. And all these different bodies exist within you. If you look under a microscope at anything on the physical realm, your physical body, and you look at the molecules, you'll notice that the actual molecules, or actually the space in between the molecules, are bigger than the molecules themselves. And so you're able to move outside the physical realm. And you've heard stories of people moving through walls and moving through different things, using certain sciences to manipulate physical matter. But within you, when you lay down to sleep, you go into a dream state. And one of those bodies that you have move into a different dimension, a whole nother world. When you think of thought, your thought is no longer, your mind is projected outside your physical body. You're thinking far, you could be thinking, you could be in New York, you could be thinking of someplace in England. Some people can see places that they've never been, you see. So you're able to, your mental body, astral body, and various other bodies that you have are able to move outside the physical body based on the space between the molecules being bigger than the molecules themselves. So you have different bodies that actually exist in the same space at the same time. When you walk down the street, those different bodies are not as solid as the physical body. So they are slightly outside the physical body already. When you walk past someone, you feel a vibration. Or if someone's behind you, you can feel the energy of that person behind you, because your other bodies extend outside the physical body, you see. And that is called an aura. That's part of it. So when you, as I said, when you think of thought, when you lay down to sleep, when you do various things, you project your different bodies in different manners, you see. And so I had to lay that down so you can understand what I'm going to talk about. Now, on the last tape I said that the white man came first. Now, I'm not talking about, as I said before, the European or the created white man created by Yaqub. I'm talking about an ancient being. An ancient being. The sun releases photon radiation. That radiation breaks up and reforms into soft particles. The soft particles come through the Earth's atmosphere, break up and change again into a different type of soft particle. Those soft particles, which are the rays of the sun, enter to the Earth's atmosphere and go into the Earth, impregnating Mother Earth, causing life to grow. Those same particles that go deep within from the sun, that go deep within Mother Earth, also cause gravity. Soft particles cause gravity. Without that sun ray, you wouldn't be able to stay or exist on the physical plane and able to walk on the ground, you see. Everything that's on the Earth would float up into the Earth's atmosphere and into space. The Earth would spin off its so-called axis and out of its spiral and out into a chaotic space without the rays, the photon radiation changing into these particular soft particles. So then, knowing that, we have to understand that in the Nag Hammadi library, Sophia is created from the great vaginal spirit, which we're going to get into. The great vaginal spirit creates Sophia. Sophia has a son without the authorization of the great spirit. That son is called Yabolta, who had a lion's head and a snake body. You see. Of course, the lions always represent Leo. Leo the lion, which is dealing with the sun. The sun that the Nag Hammadi in the Apocryphon of John is talking about is the actual sun, and the actual physical sun that we see. And the only reason why we see it is because it reflects off the Earth's atmosphere. So this particular deity, who later Sophia has called Yabolta, she even mates with him later, her own so-called son, allegorical, because the sun in the sky mates with Mother Earth, the sun and the mother. The sun impregnates the mother and causes life to grow and causes gravity. She was sorry that she had created this particular sun in the Nag Hammadi library, because it went against the whole principle of the great vaginal spirit who created her. This particular deity becomes Jehovah, the jealous God, you see, who is the sun, who is Leo, with the snake body. He becomes the jealous God in your Bible. And we're going to deal with that on the next tape. But I just want to give you an overview. Now, if the sun causes all gravity of the physical realm, and in the Nag Hammadi library, he is called Yabolta, or the jealous God, who creates a secondary race. We're going to get into that later. But he is the jealous God. Jealous of what? First of all, if there's no other God besides me, which he said out of his own mouth, and according to the King James Bible, if he is the only God, then what is he actually jealous of? You see. So, you have to ask yourself this. Of course, now, let me stop and mention this first. When you're dealing with melanin, we've heard all the great things about melanin, and it is, you know, helps you to not get sunburn and skin cancer. Melanin. You see, all the great Richard King, Delbert Blair. I mean, there's a lot of information on melanin and all the great properties and all the things it do for us, which we're happy about on the physical level. Although melanin has a lot of spiritual things dealing with it also, quite a few. Probably more spiritual than physical, you see. But yes, melanin makes us the best there is, but you have to understand it also can make you the worst there is. It works in both directions. Black people could be the strongest, prettiest people in the world. You can also find the weakest, ugliest people in the world. We are the best of everything based on melanin. You see, based on melanin. If there were no sun, we would not need melanin. If there were no sun. According to the Nag Hammadi library, before the sun was created, it was Sophia. And before Sophia was the great vaginal spirit, or the black hole, you see, which we all existed within this black hole. There existed no sun. Therefore, there was no need for melanin. The actual white people or pale people that I spoke of, who came first, was ourselves. That was us. We are the first people we are eternal. We were never created. We were always here, part of this great vaginal spirit, you see. And now existing in this physical dimension wherein the sun that you see in the sky that comes up every morning keeps you physically trapped through gravity in the physical plane, trapped on the physical level, you see, through the actual photon radiation that causes gravity, you see. So now we have to understand something. We're the whole concept of hell being a place of fire, you see. Hell being a place of fire. And the person running it was a red devil, which was dealing with the red menstrual blood that created this Yabolta, who had the snake body, you see, who had the snake body, and the lion head, which was Leo, the lion, which was the sun. You see, you got to understand that. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that because there's a lot of information dealing with that. Now, I talked about how we have these different bodies on the astral plane, etheric, mental, spirit bodies. Well, first let's talk about this. We hear a lot of, or see a lot of information, pictures, and a lot of hoopla about UFOs. And yes, I've even seen a UFO myself. Me personally, the ones I've seen, I believe, are satellites and various other things. I've seen one, and not by myself, or with other people when I've seen this, satellites way up in space. I took my camera and zoomed in on this particular thing, and it looked like some kind of siren on top of it. So yes, there are unidentified flying objects. Of course, these things are most likely government operations and so forth, and whatever else it may be. But there are also a large amount of UFOs are not what we think they are. A large amount of UFOs are actually sky creatures, living UFOs. And these particular UFOs are huge, floating, chaotic, amoeba-looking things. And most of the time they're not, we can't see them with the 5 senses. But radar, infrared cameras pick these things up. And every now and then with the right lighting, someone catch these things on camera. Now, I'm not saying all of them are. All the UFOs are living creatures, but the majority of them are living entities. You see, living entities, sky creatures, moving through a dimension slightly higher than our own. And the only time we get to see these things is if we, sometimes the infrared light of the sun, different lighting, and you get a glance of these things and you think you saw a UFO. Or you may see something in the sky that looks like a UFO, you see, has some kind of strange shape to it. Sky creatures. Now, these same sky creatures also exist on the ground and in different areas of the planet Earth. The ones that exist on ground are different from the ones that exist in the air, you see. The sky creatures that exist in the air are actually thought forms. These are energy creatures that are manifest based on the thinking of the masses of people. And this is the whole reason for consciousness, you see, because certain thoughts, long meditative thoughts, can manifest these particular sky creatures. And they take on the nature of the person that brought it to life, you see. And they cause sickness, they cause happiness, they do various things based on the thinking and the energy and the power of the person who brought it to life. Sky creatures. Now you have something else that exists on the ground, and those are not sky creatures. Those are astral zombies. These are real living creatures. Astral zombies are actually deceased people. Now, when we do our ashe and when we give honor to the ancestors. You got to remember that the ancestors that we ashe to are you see. You may have a great-great-grandmother that passed on in slavery. You have her DNA. That DNA molecule exists within you. And that's why you have the whole science of patenting your DNA. You see, patenting your DNA. GATT, or Gattaca. That's all in the movie Gattaca. So, you are actually more than just the DNA. You are actually in the next phase of your schooling on the physical level. And then you continue to move through the different phases of the physical realm, reincarnating once, twice, 3 times, till you graduate off this realm into the next realm, or the next dimension. Astral zombies are people who died without the correct ritual or burial, who moved into the astral plane, moved from the astral plane, and left behind them the body of the astral body without the mental body. Let me try to explain that a little better for you. When a person dies on the physical realm, now most people who pass away, they have a funeral, they're buried correctly. A lot of people, especially black people, die unjustly. But we have a ritual that we perform, going all the way back to Sumeria, certain rituals to put you in a coffin and in the ground and close you up. And you have to ask yourself, why? Why not just throw you in the ground and cover you up with some dirt, like a lot of other people were? Why did they have the ritual of coffins? Why did the mummies, of course, we understand there's a lot of reasons for the mummies mummifying themselves, but on the occult realm, you got to understand something. They thought that certain people can re-manifest themselves on the physical plane as a zombie, and they were scared to death of this, you see. Go see any mummy movie. The mummy comes back to life as a zombie, you see, to kill those who opened up his tomb. So mummification, yes, it has a lot of other things dealing with that. The Sumerians and various other rituals in burial, you see, was to keep the dead dead, basically, you see. The people who don't get these particular, who died on the slave ships, who were murdered, shot down 41 times, and just thrown in the ground or whatever, and even some that have the ritual of burial, you see, can also manifest as an astral zombie. Now, let me explain what I mean by astral zombie. When a person dies, as I said before, their hair and fingernails continue to grow. Some people even move, sit up, and move around while they're dead. They reanimate, you see, which is a leftover energy, nerves, electricity that moves through the body. Well, the same thing happens on the astral plane. When a person dies, he moves into the astral plane, and then he moves from the astral plane to a spiritual plane, to another plane after that. He left behind an astral body. The astral body still has energy in it and still manifests itself in different ways and do certain things robotically without any thought to it, you see. This is some real stuff here. So when you see a ghost, when you see people who are so-called possessed by a demon and all this kind of stuff, these are left behind astral bodies who left behind a energy that manifests itself on that level, and you thought you saw a ghost. You see? Or you see a ghost. People see ghosts and all this kind of stuff. Or she got a demon in her. You see? And that's somebody who was thrown off. That's why the slaves who died on the slave ships, that energy is going to exist eternally until that is settled, you see? Until that is settled. Because it's not the actual people or it's not the actual ancestors in that energy. They've moved on to different dimensions and even re-manifest themselves in their physical again. But the energy that they left behind on the astral plane is robotic. It has no thinking to it. It just continues on until it settles, that energy is settled. I hope you're getting what I'm saying here, you see. So the hurricanes, every year, those hurricanes come off the coast of Africa through Jamaica and it comes onto the east coast of America, robotically, with no thinking, you see. Astral zombies, you see. And they don't care who you are. If you get in the way of it, you're going down, black or white. You see, it has no thought to it. If it had thought to it, it would only destroy white. And maybe some of those messed up Negroes that sold them, you see. But it doesn't, it has a robotic movement to it. Astral zombies. Got to understand that. Got to understand that. So, as I said before, you can be walking down the street, you could be going someplace and you feel something behind you, you turn around, it ain't there sometimes. Or you see something out of the corner of your eye, you see. Or you see something black move past you, you say, oh, you saw like a shadow or something. You thought you saw something. Or you turn around, you see somebody standing there down the block, and then you look again, they ain't there, you see. You got to understand that. You got to understand what's that all about. These particular astral bodies, again, are leftover bodies, astral bodies left over from the previous life in the physical realm. And so they follow the same pattern. A person who died in this particular house or in that train station or wherever they may have passed on, their astral body continues to walk through there for some particular reason, something that was unjustly done or didn't have the right burial or something that went on in the physical realm that caused his death that wasn't settled, you see. So they leave behind this particular astral body that have no thinking process. It's a robotic movement, a remnant of what they used to do, you see. If you go see the movie Sixth Sense, the boy makes a profound statement when he says that these dead people don't know that they're dead, you see, because the thinking process is not there. It's an astral body there with a particular energy, you got to understand. And a lot of these particular astral zombies can have a very negative effect. For instance, as I said before, if you move into a brand new house, whatever, and something happened in that particular house, the spirit, the astral zombie that's in that particular house is not necessarily after you per se, but it is following a particular pattern that the physical body, the energy, it's an energy that doesn't know one person from the next, you see. It's just an energy, and if you get in the way of that energy, you will feel the effects of it. So you have, of course, there are positive aspects of this too, but whenever you have things, all of a sudden you put your keys down on the table and the keys are missing and all this kind of stuff, strange little things, is basically a type of energy. And that energy can manifest itself in a very mean, if it was a very mean person, very obnoxious type person, who was always negative, and basically that's probably what kills a lot of people, is that negative energy destroying the physical or destroying the physical body. But their astral body that's left behind based on how they left this realm will perpetuate that same energy that they that came from them. You got to understand, you see. So these particular, when you see monster pictures, scary pictures with all these demons and Jason and all this kind of stuff, that represents the particular energy that's dealing with a person coming back, the spirit, the dead person, his astral body, robotically moving through the physical realm, doing these various things. And they cause, now in the movies you'll see them do physical damage. These entities don't go around like the monsters you see in the movie, but the monsters you see in the movie portray a type of energy. You see, say for instance, a slave killed in slavery, unjustly killed and beaten. You know how they treated the slaves very badly, ripping the women apart, the babies falling out of the ground. That energy continues to exist and manifests itself on the spiritual realm as a monster. And it comes after them, and when you see people get when white boys get skin cancer, get sicknesses, eating away the flesh, that is the energy that we had released, the people who were unjustly killed, not only through slavery, but throughout history, the karma, that astral body robotically takes out revenge upon whoever is in its way, and basically those same people, you see. For instance, if you go back and look at some of the Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street, the person falls asleep and he enters their dreams and come into the physical reality. His only objective is to kill based on revenge, a robotic killing of, first he starts off killing the ancestors of the people who raped his mother or killed his mother, and the first few episodes, he's just killing the ancestors of those people. But as the episodes go on, he's just robotically killing, you see, entering through the dreams, you see. And based upon your own consciousness, you see, your level of spirituality, your own consciousness, can you recognize or intuitively feel this energy and know how to handle that, you see. Move it, like for instance, people will have this intuitiveness not to walk down a certain block, you see. For some reason or another, you feel you should go in the other direction. That is your intuitiveness. You're feeling the energy from those spirits, you see. And so these particular astral zombies can actually cause accidents, can cause sicknesses, all types of things. And a lot of things we consider an accident was not necessarily an accident at all, you see. Not an accident at all. And a lot of times when people have these particular certain types of dreams and nightmares and wake up shaking and sweating, these things can go back again and look at Nightmare on Elm Street. These astral zombies can enter into your dreams. It is very important that those of you who are conscious understand this, because this is the whole reason, again, for heightening your consciousness level, because the energy you emit attract certain entities and also repel certain entities based on your own thinking, you see, and your own energy. So you can actually repel this type of energy, and also you attract certain energy, positive and negative. Now this is an image of what looks like a devil, a red devil. Now we talked about the red menstrual blood, and we talked about red. Mostly, anytime you see female and you see red and black, that's dealing with menstrual blood. But this particular image here is actually an image dealing with the actual science of the root chakra. Remember, anything energetic, anything dealing with energy, spirituality, on the physical realm, it can look very ugly and mean and horrible. But on the spiritual realm, it's very beautiful. You see, so this is root chakra energy. When the root chakra rises, there's also another science by bringing the consciousness back down on the other side of the Kundalini, or the other side of the Kabbalah. Right, bringing it up, raising the Kundalini, and then bringing it back down, you see. So this is dealing with this particular science, the root chakra, which is one of the key chakras, you see. And this is the energy that it emits, and it looks demonic to you because of the way we've been trained, but it's actually very beautiful. And a lot of these images can be very beautiful. Even the astral zombies on the astral plane are actually very beautiful. And they portray a type of energy. And for instance, as I said before, when you come into contact with this energy, and even if something wrong or something good happens or something bad happens, the actual, to the person that it happens to, this is a very bad thing. And it's portrayed as a horrible creature, you see. But if you would pass on to the astral plane, it would actually be very, very beautiful. Now, as I said before, these particular sky creatures are very, very different from the astral zombies. Sky creatures, again, are thought forms, you see. And I talked about photon radiation. The reason why they exist in the sky is because the dimension that they exist in is slightly higher than the physical realm. And they are not things that were alive in the physical realm and passed on to the astral plane. They were actually thought forms, the energy that exists within you and manifests itself in the form of in a dimension higher, slightly higher than the physical, based on the energy that you released in your thoughts and in your dreams. You see, sky creatures. Now, of course, as I explained, photon radiation is only prevalent to gravity, you see. So these things exist. The gravity does not affect them. And so sometimes you may see a strange looking cloud, or just something that looks like a Goodyear balloon, or any type of weird, unidentifying type object. Now, as I said before, not everything that you see is, not necessarily all of them are sky creatures, but the majority of them. And basically, you see them at dawn. You'll see them in certain times when the radiation of the sun reflects from them. You'll see a type of reflection, and you'll catch them every now and then. You'll see these strange creatures floating through the air. You can also see them at times on a cloudy day, because the sun actually is a lot brighter on those particular days, you see. And the clouds filter the sun in a certain way that allows you to see these particular creatures. And many of these creatures at night, because the sun still shines its light and reflects it from the moon, and even reflect off these creatures, and some of them are even mistaken for stars, So you have to understand that this is not something that I've read in a book, just one book. This is well documented by scientists who have the equipment, infrared lighting, telescopes to see these things, you see, and they understand this. Now, I had explained on a previous audio tape that I'd worked on called There's a Signal, I believe there's a signal being sent. And I had talked about how HAARP was a system, antenna array system, that emits a type of wave And that particular frequency causes the masses of people to release histamines in the brain, and histamines give you when you release them, give you a flu-like symptom. And over a period of time with this flu-like symptom, they give you not only flu shots with nanites in it and other sicknesses that will appear later, but also you continue to have this particular flu symptom. You go to the hospital and they diagnose you with AIDS and give you the AZT, and of course the AZT breaks down your T cell. But also through this antenna system, they can actually control the thinking of the masses of people. And this is why we have a whole planet. Here it is, the new age, yet the whole planet is going backwards into a nullified, to a brain-dead state. And that is based on the technology dealing with HAARP. This particular HAARP system can also deaden the senses and also could cause a type of mind control, not only through your television and electronics and cell phones. There's a movie called Harrison Bergeron, where the people have on a set of headphones, and the headphones are used to control, by sending a frequency through the headphones, it controls the thinking process. Now, I had mentioned that not only does HAARP control the thinking process, but you control your own thinking process as a conscious being. And you create these particular sky creatures. But HAARP have the ability to control the minds of the masses. As I said before, these creatures are created through the thinking of the masses of people. So they can control the thinking of the masses of people and create their version of a sky creature. And that's where you see things like mudslides in Mexico, tornadoes in certain lands where black people live, you see, or where people of color live also, besides that happening to the white boy also, you see, based on our thinking and our energy. So our battle is not only on the physical, but on the spiritual plane, based in your thinking, mind control. You see, you got to understand this. HAARP is able to control the thinking of the masses of people and create these particular sky creatures. You are able to control your own thinking and create these sky creatures based on your energy. So you are in a spiritual warfare on all levels. Now, here's a very interesting image, pen drawing. You'll see the crescent moon, and you see a female's face there right next to the crescent moon, and a star over her head. Now, we talked about the moon. We know that. We understand that. We understand the female dealing with the moon, the menstrual cycle. The star over her head, the word star originally came from the goddess Ishtar. Ishtar later became Sistar, your sister. So the female is the sis, or sister. What's up, sis? And the star over her head. Sistar, you see. Ishtar, the goddess. You have to understand that. Now, here's another image of a sistar. Now, you have to understand something. We noticed that the moon, we know that the moon is dealing with the female energy. And we noticed on the last image that you had the moon with the star. And also at the bottom of this image, you see the moon and the star, plus a lot of other symbology. But the moon was representative, or the first day of the week, which was Monday, comes from the first day, is the first day of the week, comes from the word moon day. The moon day became Monday because the word mun, which is to take an O out of the moon, the word mun became mono, which means one. The first working day, not the first day, but the first working day, became the mono day or the mon day, tying into the word moon, which was the moon day. Now, when you see the moon day or the moon and the star, that's dealing with Ishtar and the moon, or the Mon. Moon day became Monday, Ishtar became star. So when you see the full moon or the crescent moon and the star dealing with the female energy, you get the Mon star. Remember, moon became Mon, as in Monday, and star came from Ishtar. Moon star, which is dealing with a feminine principle, which is dealing with Lilith, you see, which is the energy of the woman on her menstrual cycle, which seems very mean and evil, or a witch. Moon star, or moon day, with Ishtar became Monstar, you see. You have to understand that. Now, the word Ishtar is originally from the word Isis, and later became Ishtar, you see. So whenever you call a woman a sister, you're calling her the great goddess, which is dealing with the star, which is dealing with Isis, Ishtar. So whenever you hear the word monster, this is dealing with the moon and the sister, the mother goddess, the black woman, Isis. And of course, we're going to deal with this on a later tape, but the actual monster they talking about is the entity Kali, the black goddess of death. And so this is where you get the whole science of angels and guardian angels and things of that nature, although they have other meanings on different levels. But on the occult level, when you see a guardian angel is basically, as you progress through the various levels of schooling on the physical realm, passing away, being born again, coming through the great vaginal spirit, or through the black hole, or through the vagina. You manifest yourself again on the physical plane. You leave behind your thought forms. These thought forms exist eternally, you see. And those thought forms are your own basic thoughts. Those of you who are conscious beings or light beings. Remember, we're going to talk about different races or different types of human beings, not based on the color they are, you see, or the color that we are. There are different beings on this planet that create two types. On the physical realm, there are many types of beings on various realms, but on the physical level, you see. So guardian angels are, your protective angels are the thoughts of your past life. These particular thought creations that you manifest, sky creatures. Your protective energy that you have emitted throughout the ages, and coupled with your intuitiveness, and we call these guardian angels, you see. Those particular manifestations are based on the level of thinking that you have progressed through the ages that you have been reincarnated, you see. And so that becomes your karma. That's part of it. But also when you deal with these astral zombies, as I explained before, astral zombies, the person no longer exists in that astral body. So, for instance, we use Necronomicon to summon up an energy. We ashe to the ancestors. We use different sciences to conjure spirit energy. The spirit energy, if you focus on anything outside yourself, because the spirit energy that you summon in these particular rituals is this energy that you propagated various times in your different incarnations on the planet. Some of us have left behind astral bodies, and we call on those astral bodies that have no thinking for themselves but only have energy, and you have the thinking, and you direct or control the astral body and have it do your bidding, you see. But if you think in terms of a god or deity outside yourself, you begin to call on energies that didn't come from you, and they can have a negative influence on you. And this is why it's so important to understand that you have to deal with as above, so below. The God is within you, your own energy. Otherwise, you'll call on some other energy. You see, these are astral zombies. You want to call on your own, if you have left behind an astral body or astral zombie, you want to call on your own energy that you left behind various periods of time on the planet, not someone else's, you see, because you don't know what type of energy that really is. Yes, you can call on someone else's astral zombie to do your bidding. You can do that, you see, but you have to know the science of how to control these particular spirits, you see, which are not really spirits, again, because they have no thinking process. They only act on the bidding, what you direct them to do, like a robot, you see. And so when you watch movies, television shows, and a person wants to sell his soul, the devil comes up or a monster comes up, and in return for a deed, he wants your soul, because astral zombies have no soul, you see. And it is an attempt to unite themselves with the soul, you see, because they're left behind empty shells, you see, like your physical body left behind on the physical plane. You no longer exist in that particular body, but have passed on, went through different levels, and came back into the physical realm as part of your schooling. We're going to get heavily into karma and reincarnation on the next tape. So you have to understand that. So, also, I want to talk about something else before I go on with the astral bodies and or astral zombies and sky creatures. I want to give you some more information dealing with pale people becoming people being the first people on the planet, or white people, which was us. Because I know for those of you who are just beginning to get into the knowledge of the occult, it sounds a little strange. It might even sound a little bit crazy. But even, as I said before, as above, so below. The great vaginal spirit is also between the legs of a woman, the vagina. From that vagina comes all life, you see. The vagina is also called Sophia, as we talked about. When a baby is born, the majority of babies are born pale from the black hole. Very few are born with the melanin already kicked in. Though those who spend a lot of time in sunlight, the baby will be born a little bit darker. But the two blackest parents you could find could have a baby, and that baby will be pale or white, you see. And once they come out of that black hole and into this particular atmosphere, the melanin begins to kick in. They start to get darker. The melanin is activated. You see, we all have the melanin within us. Small amounts, large amounts, whatever. But it's not activated until you come into this physical realm, controlled by the Son of God. Now, this particular book here, the cult of the black snake. It's an excerpt from Cult of the Shadow by Kenneth Grant. And in here he's talking about Michael Berdieks, the person who wrote the Vodou Gnostic workbook. And in here he's talking about the space that exists between all molecules. And he's saying that we existed, or entities exist, between the space of all molecules, which is basically you. Your origin was in the existence of the blackness of space that is between the molecules. As we spoke of earlier, the space between molecules is bigger than the molecules themselves. But when you're dealing with outer space, the blackness of space has different densities. When space is pushed together, as in a black hole, it becomes very dense. You see, very dense. As it becomes dense, the denser it becomes, or the tighter it becomes, it shoots forth, it pushes out light or photon radiation, or actually electrons are shot forward from between the two, pushing the blackness of space, condensing itself, you see. And actually, these particles are so small that even the strongest microscope, or the most powerful camera couldn't pick these things up until they come together. And they come together by shooting out forward, and as it compresses, the blackness of space continue to compress, more of these electrons are shot forward. And as they're shot forward, as they come toward whatever planet, say the Earth, they slow down, and they leave a trail. They slow down, these molecules. And other molecules that are shot forward catch up to it and crash into it, you see. And when it crashes into it, it shoots it forward even further, and it stays with it, until finally hundreds of thousands of them are in a ball shooting toward the Earth, or in all directions. When this space is condensed, it shoots in all directions, you see. And this is what you call a wavelength. A wavelength is the length of this particular electron that is shot forward from the condensing of the black space, you see. These particular electrons is the seed of life, is what you are originally. You come forth from the black hole, just like a baby born pale or white or light coming from the black hole of the vagina. So these lights, or this electron, comes forth from the compression of the deep blackness of space, the black hole. And that's why the black hole looks darker than space itself, you see. You see. And so these particular lights condense together and produce a photon. These photons come into the Earth's atmosphere and become soft particles which cause gravity, you see. But we originally exist within the blackness of that dense space, which is the macrocosmic version of the vagina of the woman, you see. Also, the actual seed that impregnates the woman is sperm, which is basically also white. You gotta understand that. So, in the movie Pitch Black, these creatures are living on a planet, and they don't come out. The sunlight hurts them, but they live in constant darkness, blackness, you see. And they come out when the sun is blocked, you see. And they live underground until the planet becomes night or dark. And these particular creatures, in the movie, you have two black men, a Muslim, or more, actually. And these two black men, they live in the end, you see. One of the Moor, these creatures wouldn't even bother the Moor at all, almost as if he was related to them. The other black man was able to fight them, and he could see in the dark. He had X-ray eyes, like the creatures did. You got to understand this whole science going on, pitch black. So it's very interesting. I highly recommend that you check this particular movie out. Also, what I want to go back to, I want to talk a little bit more about some of the fairy tales, give you a little bit more information dealing with that. A lot of times you hear in these fairy tales about enchanted forests. And, of course, we talked about Little Red Riding Hood. When she goes through the woods represent the actual pubic hair. So whenever you hear the word enchanted forest, that's dealing with the pubic hair of the female and all the minerals and all the melanin and all the various things that exist in the actual elixir of life, or the Holy Grail. The vagina is the Holy Grail. I talked about the actual sun impregnating the mother, which is the sun up in the sky there that impregnates Mother Earth, impregnated by making life grow. This is where you get the term motherfucker, you see. Comes from the sun actually impregnating Mother Earth. You got to understand that. So on the first tape, I talked about these particular words we call curse words and how they have nothing to do with cursing at all, you see. Also, we talked about werewolves. We talked about how we use certain terms, where the dog's at and all this kind of stuff. Anubis. Dog spelled backwards is what? God. Dog spelled backwards is God. So when I talked about Little Red Riding Hood, you got to understand something. Cats or women, witches, wise ones, the witch always had a black cat. The black cats represent these particular witches, symbolic of them, which is the pussy, you see. The black pussy, the black cat, you see. So when the wolf goes to grandmother's house, eats the grandmother, and then waits to eat the basket of goodies and Little Red Riding Hood, he is the dog or the god who waits to eat the pussy, who was the grandmother, and Little Red Riding Hood, who had the basket of goodies, who also symbolically with the red menstrual blood. You see, eat the pussy on the menstrual cycle. It's fairy tales. You got to understand that. So, whenever you see in Egypt, you have the Sphinx. Sphinx is a woman and a lion, right? A woman and a lion. So you got to understand, first of all, the word lion is, if you take the O and the I and turn it around, you get loin. Lion, loin, you see. And, of course, the woman represents the great Sophia, the great vaginal spirit, and the lion, or the loin, or the penis, you see, which is the Yabota I talked about from the Nag Hammadi, from the Apocryphon of John. You see, the sun, which is Leo, the lion, or the loins, and Mother Earth, the great vaginal spirit. Whenever you see, if you read in your King James Version of the Bible, or if you read these particular stories of fallen angels, you have to understand that sperm actually is brain fluid. Phil Valentine explained all that. How all the sperm is actually brain fluid. You can get any tape called The Wounded Womb that he did, the book Wounded Womb, and it's a scientific fact. Hilton Hotima does a lot of research on that. Any of his books talk about that also. The Magic Temple, Hilton Hotima. Sperm being the brain fluid. The actual angels cast out of heaven, heaven is your brain. The kingdom, the king's dome. The dome is your head, you see. The king's domain. When you have sex with a woman and you ejaculate, the sperm comes from the brain. Those are fallen angels, you see. The fallen angels is actually the brain fluid, you see. And that's what, when you hear these stories of angels cast out of heaven, you see, that's dealing with it's a sexual thing going on there, you see. Who were they cast out by? God. God spelled backwards is dog, you see, is dog, which is the werewolf, which is the animal in you on your menstrual, when the woman is on her menstrual cycle, again, the animal within you, sexuality, you copulate with this particular woman on a menstrual cycle, the brain fluid comes out, which is the fallen angels, cast out by dog or God. You got to understand that. A very key book you want to get on some of the stuff I talked about, 2-volume set. This one talks about the sky creatures. One of the books. It's a 2-volume set. It's by Dr. Joseph H. Carter, and it's called The Ultimate Reality. Excellent book dealing with that particular subject. Now, one thing that I did want to show you was that, and also mention, is that when you leave the physical realm, you take on an astral body, and you have various phases that you go through. Most of the time when you see these astral bodies, people who see ghosts or see like a smoke in a certain area, or fog or black cloud, that's dealing with the astral plane, because the actual soul itself is a light, is a chaotic light, you see. The actual person, if you can go deep within yourself, there was a episode from the new Twilight Zone where there was a doctor stealing people's souls, and he would take them out of the back of the spine, and it was a small, chaotic-looking light, a swirling light. And basically, that's what you really look like. The physical is just a prison, of course. The astral body is another type of prison. You see, there are different levels, and as a matter of fact, in this book, Ultimate Reality, it talks about different levels of different planes that we graduate to, and the different beings that live on those different planes. Very excellent, a very good book, Ultimate Reality. And we look nothing like this. Our real self, our essence, looks nothing like what the physical body looks like, and neither do we look that way. On the astral plane, we still have a remnant of what we look like in the physical, you see. In the Dawn of the Dead movies, the zombie movies, those zombies do things based on, they don't think. It's an instinct, you see. It's a robotic, moving thing. And all it does is, in part 2, all the zombies went to the mall, because that's what they did when they were in the physical, you see, when they were alive. And that's what an astral zombie does, you see. It has the same type of body. As I said, it might appear as a ghost, or you might not even be able to see it at all, but it does certain things that you would do in the physical. But when you move to higher planes and drop all of that stuff, and you become your essence, which was in the beginning in the great vaginal spirit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some slides so that you could see what these things look like, or what your self looks like. This is what you look like. Particular light bodies that who we really are, that exist within these shells, they change into various colors based on the type of energy or the type of emotion that you're emitting, you see. Basically, when you see your aura, when we go to have our auras done, these cameras pick up these things. By the way, auras, the technology concerning auras was supposedly be invented by Nikola Tesla. Now, Nikola Tesla was working for Thomas Edison during the same time as Lewis Latimer. And a lot of the things that Lewis Latimer had invented was attributed to Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla. But Lewis Latimer, during this time, could not, he was a black man, and black people couldn't have anything patented. And so he had to work for Edison or work with Tesla, and they had the rights to the patent because black people couldn't, they had black codes. So even the camera that takes a picture and reveals your aura to you, this is invented most likely by Lewis Latimer, a black man who couldn't patent anything, who Van Sertimer already gave us the information in Blacks in Science on how Lewis Latimer was the actual person who set up and designed the lighting system for London, England, and turned on the lights, gave England lights for the first time, and also designed the system and turned on the lights here in New York City, was Lewis Latimer. But when you read the history books, the only thing you could find is that he wrote a book on the filament that goes inside the light bulb, you see. But he was actually a genius, and a lot of the things that are attributed to Nikola Tesla was actually Lewis Latimer. I have a pamphlet that I put out called Edison Didn't Do It, and it compares all the different things and documents that are, you could actually get over the internet and various other books, but actually got from the Science Library in mid-Manhattan, and I compare different notes and give you the information, and you decide whether you believe this took place or not. But I believe personally that it was Lewis Latimer that gave us this aura machine and free energy, actually, free energy. But these are images of what looks, or what is, these are artists' renditions of what you really look like inside your body, and the various colors that you emit, because all colors exist within the white electron, you see. All the colors exist within it. And of course, the white electron exists within the deep darkness of black space, you see. So you gotta understand that. Now, a very interesting book that you might want to get into, try to get, is this particular book here. Is called The Black Arts. Excellent book. This book is dealing with astro zombies. It's dealing with quite a few things here. As a matter of fact, it's getting into the sciences of Francis Bacon, how he was Saint Germain, and or how they dealt with the elixir of life. It's a very heavy book. It's by Richard Cavendish. And an absorbing account of witchcraft, demonology, astrology, and other mystical practices throughout the ages, the black arts. Now, you got to understand something. You walk into a store and you see a book called Black Arts. For most people with the Christian mind control thinking, immediately you're thinking devil, witch, stay away from that stuff. But anybody with any brain in their head should understand something. if you see a book that says the black arts on it, you got to understand, as a black man or black woman, that's a book that you should read. You see? The black arts. You got to understand this. So, very good book to actually get. I want to talk a little bit more about the Nag Hammadi Library. I talked about the Great Vaginal Spirit. Just want to give you some information to lead you into the next tape. Again, you have the Great Vaginal Spirit, which is the black hole, which is the vagina of the woman. When you read the Nag Hammadi Library, and even when you read the Bible, it has two sides to everything. Everything has two sides, you see, which is called justice. You see, which is justice. A magician who's practicing the Moorish science would have to be an expert or at least knowledgeable in both sciences, good with so-called good or so-called bad, which is really how you use it, and you term it good or bad. You see, a true master magician is a person who masters both, not just good, because then you're open to the bad, you see. A magician masters both, and so does a wise one. A witch was called the wise one. A witch was the counterpart to a wizard, you see, because a wizard was a wise one which dealt with the wisdom or the wise dome, which is the head, the brain. The dome is your head, where the wisdom lies, which is the pineal gland, you see. So a wizard was the male aspect, not a warlock, but a wizard is the male aspect of a witch or the wise one, you see. I said this on a previous audio, a magician practices magic. A wizard knows the magic, you see, knows the magic, you see, which is only dealing with the magi, which is the sciences of astrology and all the other various things that we've talked about and going to talk about, you see. And astrology is very important when it comes to that. As I said, the Great Vaginal Spirit created Sophia. Sophia actually means wisdom, which is the witch, which is Lilith, which is the wise one, you see. She, without the authority of the Great Vaginal Spirit, creates Yabota, or Jehovah, who is the lion head deity with the snake body, you see. So the vagina, you see, menstruates the wisdom, which is Sophia. In the wisdom, you had all the elements to create the physical world if you wanted to. But without the authority of the vagina, she has this lion-headed deity called the sun, you see. And he creates the physical realm and believes that he is the God over all other gods and no other God beside him, actually, you see. So you got to understand that there's a allegorical side to this particular apocryphon of John also. Now, Yabota, first, the Great Vaginal Spirit actually has a vagina, also menstruates, and it also can have a baby. The Great Vaginal Spirit creates a real sun to dwell in the universe. Yabota, the lower deity, was a jealous god. When he saw the real sun, created other beings like him, you see. So now we're talking about two different types of humans on the planet, which we're going to get into on the next tape.